The Principle of Dependent Origination, the most important doctrine in Buddhism. The entire operating law of the human universe was summarized by Buddha in a succinct truth. If this exists, that exists. From the arising of this, that arises. If this does not exist, that does not exist. From the cessation of this, that ceases. This is the doctrine of dependent origination. The law of dependent origination encompasses two aspects, arising and ceasing, occurring in multiple dimensions. The process of arising and ceasing and arising, continues indefinitely from the beginningless to the endless time. It encompasses everything from the birth and decay of the physical body to the consciousness of individuals and all sentient beings, to the formation and destruction of the earth and the universe. The wisdom of the Buddha did not only discover this law, but also demonstrated how to apply it so that people can liberate themselves from suffering and achieve happiness. This podcast episode will delve into the doctrine of dependent origination primarily through the middle-length discourses. Chapter 1. The core doctrine in Buddhism displayed in the world. Buddha taught that the universe was not created by a divine entity like Brahma, nor did it arise naturally without cause, nor from a single cause such as mind or matter, unlike prevalent philosophical thoughts worldwide. In essence, Buddha rejected all contemporary worldviews. The doctrine of dependent origination he discovered is thus a fundamental law of the universe's operation, embodying an ultimate truth. According to this, the appearance of any phenomenon is connected to numerous causes, and these causes in turn link to further causes. Moreover, the phenomena themselves contribute conditions for the emergence of other phenomena. Conversely, if one phenomenon ceases, it does so because the conditions that produced it have also ceased, and this cessation leads to the disappearance of other related phenomena. Interdependence in nature and humanity. Everything in the realm of nature and humanity depends on each other for existence. Existence is only possible through relational dependencies. Nothing can exist independently, as all things depend on numerous interrelated factors. If one element ceases, others too cannot exist. This constant change means entities also transform over time. Illustrative example with plants. Plants depend on soil as a medium, minerals, and nutrients for growth, moisture to transport nutrients and build cellular structures, and sunlight for photosynthesis. Without any of these elements, a plant cannot survive. The factors crucial for a plant's growth do not influence it in a sequential order over time. They must exist simultaneously, interdependently. A plant contributes to sustaining the ecosystem by shedding leaves and other parts, which decompose and enrich the soil with humus and trace minerals. Theoretically, for something to exist independently, it must sustain and stabilize itself. However, according to natural laws, this is impossible, and consequently, all entities are transient and lack inherent essence. All entities are formed and maintained through relational networks. There is no beginning or end, as the question of what comes first cannot be answered: the seed or the plant, the chicken or the egg. According to dependent origination, each event is the consequence of antecedents, accumulating as various influences that shape the present. Therefore, the notion of chance depends on prerequisite conditions. Since nothing exists independently, all entities rely on preceding determining factors, not sequentially or requiring any specific order. This contrasts sharply with the classical model, where the universe is viewed as predictable like billiard balls on a table. Metaphorically, quantum behavior, similar to human behavior, is less predictable and cannot be mathematically measured. Only probabilities can be guessed through approximation. This law does not only occur in plants, but universally applies from the vast cosmos to the tiniest microbe. Thus, the law of dependent origination encompasses both arising and ceasing aspects occurring multidimensionally. The process of arising and ceasing and arising is perpetual, stretching from the timeless beginning to the endless end. The cycle of formation and dissolution of the world. In the world, the process of formation and dissolution occurs through four phases: formation, sustenance, decay, and emptiness. Only during the sustenance phase do living beings exist. For sentient beings, these stages are birth, aging, sickness, and death. However, this cycle of birth and death only occurs on the surface of phenomena. Fundamentally, it is merely a continuous transformation and change of these entities. They are neither born nor destroyed. The elements that constitute the material aspect of the world, among the basic conditions leading to the formation of the universe and all creatures, are the material elements Buddha organized into 4 categories. Earth element, which represents solidity, mass, and weight. Water element, which signifies fluidity and cohesion. Fire element, embodying heat and cold, burning and contracting properties. And wind element, symbolizing movement, expansion, and transition. These 4 elements harmoniously combine to form the material aspect of the world, and as they dissolve, the material aspects disintegrate as well. Chapter 2. The Doctrine of Dependent Origination, expressed in the human condition. The elements that constitute a human being or sentient being, according to the doctrine of dependent origination, arise from multifaceted conditions, not solely from material or mental origins, and certainly not from divine creation or random emergence without cause. Buddha elaborated in many sutras that humans are formed from 2 groups of elements. The material group, rupa, composed of the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, air, and the mental group, nama, consisting of 4 aggregates, sensation, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. These material and mental groups together are called the 5 aggregates: rupa, vedana, sana, sankhara, vijnana. The term aggregate in Pali, khandha, means pile or group. These are merely collections, subject to arising and passing away, beyond subjective desire. Thus, there is nothing that can be identified as self or ego. Nor is there any divine being controlling this process of arising and cessation. Everything operates according to the universe's law of dependent origination. In the greater discourse on the destruction of craving, the Buddha describes 4 basic conditions leading to conception: the father's seed, the mother's egg, the mother's fertility cycle, and the presence of the gandhabba, a condition linked to the mental factor. And monks, when the mother and father come together, and the mother is in her fertile period, and the gandhabba is present, with these 3 conditions met, the embryo is formed. Middle-length discourses, Minnesota 38. Mahatanha Sankhya Sutta. From the time spent in the womb to birth and then to maturity, the material elements, rupa, develop through the 4 great elements, nourished by the mother's blood in the womb, her milk post-birth, and food as one grows. Meanwhile, the mental elements begin with the rebirth consciousness and gradually mature, becoming more distinct as sensation, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness through interactions with the external world. Buddha extensively explains the material phenomena: internal forms, internal earth element, internal water element, internal fire element, internal air element, external forms, external earth element, external water element, external fire element, external air element. In the middle-length discourse number 62, the greater discourse on the advice to Rahula at Lanka, Maha Rahulavada Sutta, as follows. Rahula, whatever pertains to the inner body, to the individual, is solid, coarse, and clung to, such as hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, tendons, bones, marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, stomach, feces, and whatever else belongs to the inner body, to the individual, solid, coarse, and clung to. Thus, Rahula, this is called the internal earth element. Both the internal earth element and the external earth element are simply earth elements. The earth element should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself. After observing the earth element as it actually is with proper wisdom in such a way, one becomes disenchanted with the earth element and the mind disengages from the earth element. Thus, internal forms pertain to what belongs to the individual's own body. External forms relate to the material outside of the individual. Reflecting on internal and external forms is part of the meditative path for a Buddhist disciple. Furthermore, Udayi, I teach the path of practice to my disciples, and my disciples, relying on this path, practice the 8 liberations. Being oneself with form, seeing forms, this is the first liberation. Contemplating internal form, seeing external forms, this is the second liberation. Contemplating form is pure, concentrating on that thought, this is the third liberation. Completely transcending forms, eliminating thoughts of sensory resistance, not thinking about differing thoughts, with the thought infinite space is boundless, attaining and abiding in the base of infinite space. This is the fourth liberation. Middle-length discourses, Minnesota 77, Maha Sakuludai Sutta. Thus, from birth to death and rebirth, the stream of five aggregates, form, sensation, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, continuously changes, either descending, leading to suffering, or ascending, leading to happiness and peace. In Buddha's observation, no change lacks causal conditions, and by understanding the laws governing the body and mind, individuals can proactively create beneficial conditions, good karma, for their name and form in this life and the next. In analyzing the modes of existence of sentient beings, Buddha taught that there are four types of birth: egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, transformation-born, existing in three realms: the realm of desire, the realm of form, the formless realm, all within a world full of afflictive suffering called the five realms of affliction, epoch of decline, views of decline, afflictions of decline, beings of decline, lifespan of decline. Chapter 3. The 12 Links, the Cycles of Birth and Death in Life. The principle of dependent origination accurately reflects the life cycle of humans and sentient beings, where one condition leads to a result, and that result becomes the condition for another result, continuously transitioning from birth to death and rebirth. The life cycle of a human or any sentient being revolves around a chain of 12 links. Buddha described these 12 links starting with ignorance and ending with old age, death, and the sorrows, griefs, and sufferings that arise from them. The 12 links are explained in two directions, forward and reverse. The forward direction is, from ignorance as a condition, volitional formations; from volitional formations as a condition, consciousness; from consciousness as a condition, name and form; from name and form as a condition, the six sense bases; from the six sense bases as a condition, contact; from contact as a condition, feeling; from feeling as a condition, craving; from craving as a condition, clinging; from clinging as a condition, becoming; from becoming as a condition, birth; from birth, then old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair come to be. Thus, Ananda, this is the arising of this entire mass of suffering. The reverse direction is, with the complete cessation, the total non-attachment of that very ignorance, volitional formations cease. With the cessation of volitional formations, consciousness ceases. With the cessation of consciousness, name and form cease. With the cessation of name and form, the six sense bases cease. With the cessation of the six sense bases, contact ceases. With the cessation of contact, feeling ceases. With the cessation of feeling, craving ceases. With the cessation of craving, clinging ceases. With the cessation of clinging, becoming ceases. With the cessation of becoming, birth ceases. With the cessation of birth, old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair completely cease. Thus is the complete cessation of this entire mass of suffering. Here, according to our research group, the term condition can be interpreted as conditioning, causing, initiating. For example, feeling conditions craving would mean that feeling acts as the condition, causes, initiates craving. That is, feeling causes craving to arise. Conversely, as Buddha taught in the Greater Discourse on the Destruction of Craving, Mahatanha Sankhya Sutta, craving takes feeling as its condition, takes feeling as its origin, takes feeling as its source, takes feeling as its root. To clearly illustrate the operation of the 12 links and related factors, they are presented in the following diagram. Here we see clearly the links in the 12 links of dependent origination, each serving as a cause for the next, thus forming a sentient being and the entirety of suffering, birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. The diagram also shows the connection between the four types of food and attachment. Because of attachment, there is grasping and consumption of the four types of food. And due to the consumption of these foods, fuel is provided for the existence of sentient beings. This doesn't mean that an enlightened one who has removed the causes of suffering and entered nirvana ceases to exist completely after death. This topic will be elaborated on in another section as explained by the Buddha. Due to the monk Sati's wrong view that consciousness roams and cycles without change, the Tathagata summoned, reprimanded him, and confirmed, "I have taught that consciousness arises dependent on conditions. Without conditions, consciousness does not arise. The operation of the principle of dependent origination on consciousness is analyzed as follows. Monks, consciousness arises dependent on conditions, and each consciousness is named according to its condition. Through the condition of the eye and forms, eye consciousness arises, and it is named eye consciousness. Through the condition of the ear and sounds, ear consciousness arises, and it is named ear consciousness. Through the condition of the nose and odors, nose consciousness arises, and it is named nose consciousness. Through the condition of the tongue and flavors, tongue consciousness arises, and it is named tongue consciousness. Through the condition of the body and tactile sensations, body consciousness arises, and it is named body consciousness. Through the condition of the mind and mental objects, mind consciousness arises, and it is named mind consciousness. Similarly, monks, depending on what condition fire arises, that fire is named according to its condition. From wood as fuel, it is called wood fire. From shaving wood, it is called shaving fire. From grass, it is called grass fire. From cow dung, it is called cow dung fire. From husk, it is called husk fire. From rubbish, it is called rubbish fire. Likewise, monks' consciousness arises dependent on conditions, and each consciousness is named according to its condition. MN 38, Mahatanha Sankhya Sutta. In summary, the theory of dependent origination applied to humans and sentient beings tightly and comprehensively aligns with the teachings on the 12 links, the 5 aggregates, the 12 bases, and the 18 elements. And to sever the cycle of the 12 links, thus ending the cycle of rebirth and suffering, one need only cut one link for the other links to naturally dissolve. Thus, at times, the Buddha taught to sever the link of ignorance, at others, attachment or sensation. Later, various masters have tailored methods to sever these links depending on the capacities of sentient beings. For example, the practice of observing sensation by Genka uses sensation as the object. Conclusion. In the miscellaneous Agama Sutras, there is a dialogue between the Buddha and the monks as follows. Venerable Sir, the principle of dependent origination that you speak of, is it made by the Tathagata or by someone else? The Buddha replied to the monks, the principle of dependent origination is neither made by me nor by anyone else. Regardless of whether a Tathagata appears in the world or not, this principle of reality invariably persists. The Tathagata discovers this principle, achieves perfect enlightenment, and teaches it for the benefit of all beings. It is expressed as, this exists, thus that exists. From the arising of this comes the arising of that. That is, from ignorance comes volitional formations and so forth, up to the accumulation of a great mass of suffering. With the cessation of ignorance, volitional formations also cease, leading to the cessation of the great mass of suffering. This is an affirmation of the law-like nature and significance of the principle of dependent origination. Regarding the doctrine of dependent origination, it's difficult to claim a complete understanding, not to mention that this article is just a scholarly exploration, not a realization of enlightenment. Surely the understanding and presentation here cannot fully capture the profundity of such a profound teaching. We recognize that studying the scriptures is a long process of learning, reflecting, and practicing, which cannot be mastered overnight or fully applied instantly. This is compounded by the disparities in time and context, making many scriptural references quite alien to the contemporary reader. Therefore, the endeavor to study the scriptures requires immense patience in reading and rereading, researching terms, comparing various translations, and more. However, today, both ordained and lay practitioners face numerous challenges in their scriptural studies, including firstly, the level of scholarship, language proficiency, and access to scriptures among the Buddhist community are quite limited. Most scriptures, especially those from the Nikaya and Agama collections, are seldom discussed widely among the general public and even among many educated Buddhists, including in monastic settings. In Dharma talks, teachings are often loosely quoted as the Buddha said without clear sources, and sometimes even the person quoting is not aware of the exact origin. During chanting sessions in temples, the presence of Nikaya or Agama scriptures is rare. Sometimes in certain practice settings, practitioners are even lulled into believing that it is enough to have faith without understanding or seeking further knowledge, which transforms Buddhism from a path of wisdom to one of blind faith, resembling theocratic religions of the past. It's unfortunate that this approach is not just taught to the elderly, but many young practitioners also sincerely embrace it, rejecting further study and contemplation, even when they are still nascent in their spiritual journey. Perhaps initiatives like reading campaigns organized by bookstores could inject some vitality into scriptural studies, albeit a bit noisy in a secular manner. Preachers themselves need to continuously deepen their knowledge of Buddhist teachings and diligently clarify sources during teachings as much as possible, to train listeners about scripture names, not to mention content. Chanting practices in temples should be more varied to prevent mental stagnation, avoid becoming mechanical, and introduce more of the Nikaya and Agama texts. Secondly, the language in the Nikaya and Agama scriptures is somewhat archaic, making it difficult for many to read and understand. Therefore, the teachings closest to the original spirit of Buddhism become alien to most Buddhists. This opens the door to the sacralization and ritualization of Buddhism, leading in some cases to moving people away from the true Dharma. The above are just some sketches on creating an open learning environment for Buddhism, where precious scriptures do not become outdated, obscure, and unfamiliar to practitioners. Hopefully, in the not-too-distant future, Buddhism in our country will flourish not only in the number of followers in temples, but also in the depth of study and realization.